Extreme 3D Pirate Skull Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi everybody! In today's video I'm going to be showing you the first of a three-part pirate themed series. I love these. Each one has a really detailed extreme element to it, whether it's a 4D design or it's just huge and exaggerated. So for the first one it's going to be this Jolly Roger 3D, extreme 3D pirate skull with a hat and two swords crossing behind him. I love this. It's just so over the top and fantastical as with the other three. Check back this weekend to see the ship and the treasure chest, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
So for this one, I'm going to begin with an overlay of a red and black glitter mix that has a couple stars into it. As soon as I saw this glitter mix, I thought, oh, this has to be used for something. And then when I thought of this pirate design, like, oh, I've got the perfect background for the skull. So that's the background I used, and then I'm going to encapsulate the nail with a layer of clear acrylic to protect that glitter, and also a glitter base just really isn't that strong. So having a layer of clear acrylic makes it so that the nail is not fragile anymore, which is always a good thing. And now I'm going to be filing that nail into shape with my E-file, starting out with a coarse bit to remove any bulk, and then going over it with a finer bit just to smooth it out and make sure that that glitter will shine really, really bright. And now that I have all of that done, I'm going to begin sculpting my two swords on a nail form backing. So I've got silver acrylic, metallic silver acrylic that I'm going to use. If you don't have a very metallic silver, I would sculpt the entire sword with black and then use a chrome powder over the top of it to make it that metallic quality, if you don't happen to have a silver acrylic that just has enough of a metallic sheen on its own. So sculpt into a long bar shape, and then take and use something, I'm just using a floss pick to cut out the shape of the pointed tip of my sword. Do that for both sides, or for both swords, pushing it in a little bit, and then I'm going to be adding their handles with black acrylic. So the first part of their handle is the part that you have your hand around, so this is the first step in that, and then create like a little bulbous disc on the end of it, on the end of each one, and then let that acrylic set up. Once it's set up, come back to it, and now we're going to be adding the shield part of the handle of the sword. So that's the part that makes it so that your hand can't slide down the sword and go onto the blade, so it stays on the handle and helps protect your hand from whoever it is that you're sword fighting. So just kind of curve that around and then sort of pull it up. You want this to have a really nice three-dimensional height on it, so keep pressing the acrylic up until it starts to build up that height. And then after you have the one done, go ahead and do the second one. And now we're going to be, once again, working on a nail form backing, and we're going to be sculpting the pirate hat. So just sculpt the first basic shape of it and kind of press it out a little bit. Let the acrylic polymerize, so just leave it for approximately 30 seconds depending on the brand that you're using. And then after it's gotten to that point, you can start manipulating it. And to do that, just press it out in the center so that it kind of fans out, and take on those little two side pieces, press out so you get this ridge that goes sort of up and then down, almost like a little hill in the middle of the hat. I know it's hard to see in the video since it's just black acrylic, but I'm also going to press out the very center of the hat so it doesn't have a ridge there, so that when you put on or you start sculpting the skull, it doesn't have to go up and over something. We're going to glue the hat onto the nail, so just glue that right in place after it's set up. And then after you have that done, you can see that there's a little gap behind the hat for the swords. And I missed recording this, but I actually just cut my swords in half with a manicure scissors. The acrylic there is still thin enough that you can easily snip it with the scissors. So then glue the handle of the swords behind the hat, and then glue the rest of the blade from the sword coming out from the other side of the hat, so that it lines up and it looks like it's one continuous piece and nobody is ever going to tell that you cut it in two. Do that for the other side as well, and then we can begin sculpting the skull with the white acrylic. So take a bead of white and set it down right there in the middle of the hat, right where you press the hat out, and then start pressing that acrylic into your skull shape. If you wanted to sculpt the skull on a nail form backing as well, you certainly could, but then it wouldn't take on the contour of the nail, and it would have this, it would look more like it was something just glued on, not like it was part of the nail as much, which I wanted it to look like it was really part of the nail. One thing I like to do whenever I'm sculpting a skull is to dip a dotting tool into clear acrylic and use that to press in the eye sockets and the nasal cavity and just create some of those extreme carvings on the skull without having to use just your brush. Something a bit harder does a better job of it. Just like I'm using that floss pick again to carve in the teeth on my skull. take a little bit more of the white acrylic and sort of touch up any lines that aren't very smooth. That is one disadvantage of using a dotting tool or something of that nature, is that it doesn't create that really soft effect that you can sometimes sculpt in with an acrylic brush instead. So if you do have some weird lines or bumps going on, you have to go back through and add just a little bit of a touch-up layer of acrylic here and there to smooth those out. Now that I have that done, I'm going to strengthen up my swords and the back of the hat with some clear acrylic. So this is something you probably should have done beforehand, before sculpting the skull, but sometimes I do things out of order, but that's just to prevent them from breaking since they are so thin. So now with some gold paint, I'm going to go through and start detailing my swords and adding a little bit of a decorative element. That's one thing about pirates, is they're very flamboyant. They have, you know, this definite style that they go for, and gold details, they want to be the sparkliest of them all. So I'm going to take that gold and add just some gold edging on both the swords and the hat. So just like the trim on them. And this gold paint I'm using is phenomenal, and it's a really old bottle that is discontinued. And I know I get asked about it every time I use it because it's like a one-coat dream. And once this bottle's gone, I'm probably going to have to cry because I can't get another one. But I'm going to take that and do the trim, and then with some gray paint I took and did a little bit of highlighting on the other part of the handles of the sword, the actual part where your hand would go. And then with that same light gray paint, I'm going to be painting a little skull and crossbones on the front of the pirate hat. So when I thought of this design, it was right after our trip to Disney. So if you guys want to see a whole bunch of Disney nail videos, you have to go back to February. But it was right after our trip to Disney, and one of my favorite rides is always the Pirates of the Caribbean. And so I was in there, I'm like, I need to do a whole series of pirate nails. So here you go, so you guys can thank Walt Disney for the inspiration for this design. But then I'm going to go through with that gray and do a little bit of shading on my skull and do some black. So everything on the skull is going to be grayscale. And one of these days I'm going to have to do a more realistic skull that isn't grayscale, that has some of the brown tones and tans and rust colors that you would see in an actual skull, but not today. And then we're just going to take and detail that skull and crossbones with a couple little black spots on that one that's on the hat. And then add a couple more details to the face. I like to go back and forth when I'm working on something so that I will give the paint a time to dry before adding a different layer to it or going to a different part, so that I don't accidentally smear my paint. With really bright white paint, I'm going to be doing some highlights on the skull, namely around the eyes and teeth, and a little bit of a highlighting around the sword blades. Then some gel sealer over the sword blades and over the background, and then some matte top coat over the handles of the swords, the hat, and the skull face. I absolutely love this one, you guys. I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and check back tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Friday and Saturday for the other two in this series, because they're all amazing. And here's a melody minute.
Get a little more.
What you doing?
Lemonade.
You're making lemonade?
See?
See, is it gonna be really good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help.
Okay, we're gonna do another one?
Yeah.
Right there? No, don't eat it. Don't eat it. Okay.
Popcorn.
Yeah, I know you stole a popcorn. Okay, are we gonna make one right here? Ooh, that looks like a good one, huh?
2 circles. 2
Two.
circles.
2 circles, that's right. How many are there?
2 9.
1.
2. 2. 16.
What about 3?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
2, 2, 5.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Yay!
Good job. Yeah.
Okay, should we do right here? Ooh, muscles. Okay. Where should we do the next one?
And this one.
Okay, we'll do this one.
2 circles.
How many are there now? There's more than 2.
Should we count them?
2 circles.
We can count them.
Okay,
You ready?
ready? Can you count for me?
Popcorn.
Okay, you can count with me? 1,
2, 3, 5, 16.
1,
16.
2, 3, 4, 5. 5.
6, 16. 16.
4, 6, 16. That's pretty silly.
4, 16.
Okay, should we make one right here?
Muscles.
Muscles. All right. Okay, we can do one more before we roll it out again.
Very efficiently.
No. There we go.
Biscuits.
It is biscuits.
All right, so I got a plan.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Melody is definitely a little kitchen helper at this point and wants to help with anything she can. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.